Have you ever looked in the mirror and asked, who am I really? Beneath all the roles, expectations, and masks. If that question echoes something deep within you, something you haven't dared to face, this video is for you. Because what if your pain wasn't a mistake, but a message? What if everything that broke you was trying to wake you up? This isn't just another motivational video. It's a mirror, a map, a moment of reckoning. In these next few minutes, you'll uncover truths you've avoided, feel things you've buried, and hear words your soul has longed for. You'll understand why your life may feel like it's falling apart, and how that chaos might be the beginning of your rebirth. You'll learn why relationships shift, why loneliness is sacred, and why the most powerful thing you can do is finally choose yourself. By the end of this video, you won't just feel inspired, you'll feel seen. You'll feel ready to stop performing and start becoming, ready to let go of what you're not and return to who you really are. So don't just watch, stay, because your life doesn't change when you rush. It changes when you remember. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. Healing isn't about rushing to feel better. It's not about slapping a smile over your pain or pretending you're okay just to make others comfortable. True healing, the kind that reaches your soul, takes time. It takes honesty. It takes everything. And to begin that kind of healing, you have to stop running from yourself. You have to stop justifying the pain. You have to stop blaming others. Stop blaming the past. Stop pretending it's all behind you when your body still carries the weight of what you never spoke. Because let's be honest, what hurts the most isn't always the memory itself. It's the part of you that was never acknowledged when it happened. The part that cried silently. The part that needed someone to see it, and no one did. That invisible wound doesn't vanish with time. It waits. It waits for you. Carl Jung said that the soul speaks through symbols. And when we don't listen, it doesn't go quiet, it screams. It screams through anxiety that comes out of nowhere. Through sleepless nights that don't make sense. Through relationships that drain you and feel like punishment rather than love. It screams through repeating patterns. Yes, the same kinds of people, the same heartbreak, the same disappointment over and over again. It screams through decisions that sabotage your joy, through silences that knot themselves in your throat, through the exhaustion of always being fine. And no, it's not bad luck. It's not the universe being cruel. It's a call. A sacred, terrifying call. Your unconscious doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to complete you. It wants to wake you up. So it keeps sending you the same lessons in louder and louder ways until you finally pause and say, I see it now. It puts you face to face with yourself again and again through what irritates you, what frustrates you, what you think you can't control. Have you ever wondered why you keep attracting people who don't value you? Why do you carry emotional burdens that were never yours to hold? Why do you keep repeating stories that end in the same kind of ache? Jung explained it in a way that gave me chills. Everything that irritates us about others is a reflection of something unresolved within ourselves. Not because you are at fault, but because you are not yet whole. And when your soul is finally ready, life begins handing you back pieces of yourself through people, through pain, through clarity disguised as chaos. Look at it this way. Every connection is a key. Some are meant to unlock wounds, others to bring healing, but all of them carry a message. And if you don't stop and learn to read them, you'll keep repeating the same painful chapter until it breaks you wide open. That's the shadow's role. It's not evil. It's not your enemy. It's your most brutally honest, unrelenting teacher. The shadow is the part of you you pushed down to survive the anger you weren't allowed to feel, the sadness you never expressed, the desire you were told to be ashamed of, the voice you buried just to be loved, the need you silenced because you thought it made you weak. And as long as you deny it, it will show up as chaos, as breakdowns, as heartbreaks, as that gut-wrenching feeling that something's off, even when your life looks fine on the outside. But those moments, they're not here to punish you. They are invitations. Invitations to stop abandoning yourself and to come home, to whisper through trembling lips, "This is me too." Because you're not just made of light. You're not just the parts you show the world. You are also your shadow. And only when you embrace both do you become whole. Only then do you become real. And let me tell you something personal. The journey isn't pretty. It's not a straight line. It's a messy, confusing, heart-wrenching, beautiful spiral. You'll fall. You'll regress. You'll cry over things you thought you already healed. You'll question everything. But each time you dare to look into a part of yourself you used to avoid, you reclaim something sacred. A piece of your power, a fragment of your truth, a glimpse of the woman you were always meant to be, not the one who performs for approval, but the one who loves herself enough to stop performing altogether. That is the beginning of true freedom, not the kind that depends on anything outside you, but the kind that settles into your bones when you no longer feel the need to prove, please, or pretend. So, breathe. Just breathe. And yes, some people won't get it. They'll say, "You've changed." And they'll be right, because you're done being a fractured version of yourself just to keep others comfortable. Real healing begins the moment you say, "No more masks, no more roles, no more denial." Just the raw, beautiful, sometimes painful truth. Even if that truth costs you your comfort, even if it shakes your foundation, even if everything you built around your wounded self begins to fall apart. Because whatever crumbles when you awaken, it was never really yours. It was what you thought you had to be loved. But now you choose yourself. And when a woman chooses herself, the world trembles. Maybe somewhere along the way, you began to believe that feeling was dangerous, that allowing yourself to be vulnerable would only lead to disappointment or pain. And without even realizing it, you started crafting a life around that belief. You built invisible walls, wore unspoken armor, and made silent vows to never feel that deeply again. But here's the truth. Deep down, you still feel it. The ache never really left. It just went underground, waiting for the day you'd finally turn toward it instead of away. Because the soul doesn't forget, and neither does the body. That knot in your stomach, the sleepless nights, the exhaustion that lingers even when you've done nothing all day, they're not random symptoms. They're messages, sacred messages. They're not just physical reactions. They're the language of your soul begging to be heard. Chronic pain, anxiety that comes without warning, insomnia that whispers in the dark, emotional fatigue that drags like a shadow behind your smile, all of it is your soul saying, "Here I am. Will you finally look at me?" And if you do, if you dare to look, even through tears, something begins to shift. Not instantly, not with magic, but with truth. Because everything you repress doesn't disappear. It governs you. It rules your reactions, your relationships, and your decisions. What you avoid seeing will find ways to be seen one way or another. But here's the sacred gift in all this. Everything you understand sets you free. Jung said it beautifully. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. How many times have you whispered, "Why does this always happen to me?" As if you were cursed, as if the universe had singled you out. But it wasn't bad luck. It was an unclaimed opportunity. A lesson is unlearned. A pattern patiently repeats itself until you see the mirror. So the next time you feel overwhelmed with emotion, don't numb it. Don't scroll past it. Don't distract yourself with noise. Stop. Close your eyes. Ask it, what are you trying to show me? Where did it come from? What memory is it protecting? What truth have you been afraid to feel? Because sometimes your sadness just wants you to drop the armor. Sometimes your anger is not your enemy, it's your boundary screaming for air. And your fear? It might just be asking you to come back to yourself, To stop abandoning yourself to please people who were never meant to stay. Behind every emotion we reject is a need that was never met. And when you finally see that need not with judgment, but with tenderness, the wound begins to close. But let me be honest, you cannot heal if you keep projecting your pain onto everyone else. It's a hard truth, but a necessary one. As long as you keep blaming your ex, your childhood, your parents, the world you're handing over your power, and anything you refuse to own will own you. What you don't integrate keeps looping. What you refuse to transform traps you in a cycle of pain disguised as fate. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Jung taught us that the shadow doesn't just live in our repressed wounds, it shows up in what we hate in others. What makes you cringe in someone else is often a part of you you've never allowed to exist. Think about it. Does someone's coldness trigger you? Maybe you've never felt safe enough to set boundaries yourself. Does arrogance upset you? Perhaps you've been suppressing your own need to express boldly. Does someone's wild freedom make you squirm? Maybe it reminds you of the fire you locked away to be accepted. This isn't about justifying toxic people. It's about recognizing the mirror. Because every single relationship, yes, even the ones that broke you, came with a message. And if you stop reacting for just a moment and choose to observe, you'll find something brutally honest. They didn't hurt you from nowhere. They touched something sacred inside you, something that was already aching. This isn't punishment. This is awakening. It's that sacred turning point when you realize you have two choices: keep denying or begin looking at yourself with love. That is emotional courage. That is spiritual maturity. That is the road to freedom. Jung spoke of the hero archetype not as a picture-perfect person, but as the fierce force inside you that wakes up when your soul is finally tired of hiding. And yes, you have a heroine within you too, a woman who has cried silently, who has survived long nights no one knew about, a woman who, though wounded, still rises. She's the one who looks at the wreckage of her life, the heartbreak, the mistakes, the betrayals, and doesn't collapse. She builds something sacred from the ruins. And her journey? It doesn't begin with strength. It begins with a crisis, with heartbreak, with the moment you say, "I can't keep living like this." And that moment, painful as it is, becomes the spark that says, "Now, I begin again." Each time you choose awareness over autopilot, a dormant part of you stirs. That adapted, polite, silent version of you starts to fall away. And the real woman, the raw, radiant, unfiltered woman begins to step forward. But the ego will resist. Oh, how it resists. It wants control. It wants to keep the peace. It wants to be liked. It wants certainty. But the soul doesn't want that. The soul wants truth. It wants coherence. It wants depth. That's why your job starts to feel meaningless. That's why your relationships unravel. That's why your whole life feels like it's falling apart. It's not falling apart. It's falling together. This isn't destruction. This is your reboot. And sometimes all it takes is one honest word to start a revolution inside of you. Jung said that chaos is not failure. It's the birthplace of the new order. So if everything feels upside down right now, maybe you're not falling behind, maybe you're transitioning. This is the space most people run from. But if you're still here, still reading this, still listening, then something inside you wants to stay. And that something, though it may tremble, though it may cry, though it may not know exactly where to go, it is ready. So I invite you, gently but sincerely, to do this one simple thing. Think of the one moment in the past year that still lives in your chest. The one you can't explain, the one that changed you, the one that still stings. Ask yourself, what did it force me to see? What part of me did it awaken? What strength did it reveal? You don't need all the answers. What matters is that you showed up for yourself. Because awareness is a one-way street. Once you begin to see, you cannot unsee. And once you begin to awaken, you cannot go back to sleep. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be real. And you're not alone in this. You're peeling back the layers. You're letting go of who you thought you had to be. You're coming home to the woman who's been waiting patiently beneath it all. And that, my love, is where your healing truly begins. You've played the roles so well, haven't you? The perfect daughter, always making sure not to disappoint. The proper woman is composed, polite, and pleasing. The stable partner, the one who holds it all together, the available mother who never seems to run out of love, patience, or sacrifice. The efficient professional is praised for your reliability, your performance, and your results. But let me ask you, with all the love in the world, when were you ever just you? When was the last time you did something simply because it lit your soul on fire? Not because someone needed it, not because it checked a box, not because you feared someone would be upset if you didn't, but because it felt good to you. Can you even remember? Because the soul, it doesn't thrive on obedience or duty. It doesn't bloom in a life of performance and perfection. The soul begins to wither when you live only to fulfill others, when you become what the world expects at the cost of who you truly are. But oh, how it blooms when you begin to choose yourself, even quietly, even awkwardly, even trembling. And to make that choice, you must first learn to listen not to everyone else, but to you, your wants, your needs, your instincts. But how can you hear yourself when there's so much noise? Not just the blaring noise of the outside world, but the deafening clamor inside your mind, the voices that judge, the thoughts that compare, the fears that paralyze. That old record playing over and over, you're not enough yet. Try harder, be better, be quieter, be more. That's why silence matters. Not silence for the sake of stillness, but sacred silence, the kind that turns down the noise of everyone else so that you can finally hear you. Carl Jung once said, "The soul doesn't shout, it whispers." And if you don't slow down, if you don't stop running from yourself, if you don't pause and sit with your own heart, you'll miss the message completely. And then what happens? You keep chasing goals that were never really yours. You say yes to relationships that quietly pull you further away from yourself. You strive to meet standards that were never meant for you. You check off every box, build the life, wear the mask, and then one day you crumble because everything you built was never meant to hold the real you. That's when the crisis hits. That's when the anxiety rushes in like a tidal wave. That's when the discomfort crawls into your skin and everything begins to fall apart, not because you're failing, but because your soul can no longer tolerate being exiled. What's true becomes painful when it's not lived. And here's what I believe with every part of me. You are not lost. You are not broken. You're standing at the threshold, that sacred, terrifying, holy space between who you were and who you're becoming. Jung called it the privilege of a lifetime to become who you truly are. But that privilege comes with a price. You have to let the masks fall away. You have to lay to rest the versions of you that once helped you survive, but now only keep you small. You have to walk through the uncomfortable process of making peace with your shadow. You have to stop searching for your worth in others' eyes and start reclaiming it from within. The world won't hand you permission to do that. You have to give it to yourself. So I ask you now, gently but honestly, what part of you is begging to stop pretending? What piece of your life feels like it no longer fits? Where are you betraying yourself just to maintain the illusion of stability? If asking those questions makes your chest tighten, if they bring tears to your eyes, good, you're getting close. Because tough hat discomfort you feel, that's truth, brushing up against you. And yes, the truth will unsettle you. But it will also, finally, set you free. Because when you dare to see what you've avoided, your life stops feeling like a maze and starts becoming a path. The soul whispers, over and over, through dreams, through memories, through emotions you don't understand. And Jung knew the unconscious doesn't use words like we do. It speaks through symbols, images, feelings, and what we so often call coincidences. But those coincidences, they're not random. That person who called you just when you needed someone, that quote that pierced your chest at the right moment, that book that fell off the shelf into your hands, those aren't accidents. They are sacred messages from your soul. Jung called this synchronicity the magical alignment of inner knowing with outer events. And you've experienced it more than once. They are signs. They are confirmations. They are proof that the deepest part of you is always trying to guide you home. But when your ego doesn't want to listen, your body steps in. Through illness, through exhaustion, through pain, through that gnawing ache in your chest that you can't name, because your unconscious never sleeps. It's always watching, always waiting, always whispering, "Will you see me now?" And when you keep ignoring the whispers, the soul will start to scream. It won't stop until you listen, because the soul doesn't want you to be comfortable. It wants you to be awake. Have you had dreams lately that strangely struck you, scenes that made no sense, but left you feeling emotional? People from your past reappearing? Symbols repeating? That's not just your brain sorting data. That's your soul speaking. Because the unconscious doesn't pick at random. It chooses what resonates emotionally. It speaks in dreams not to confuse you, but to reveal you, to bring you closer to what you've been avoiding, to offer insight you didn't even know you needed. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. And I know we weren't taught to listen. We were taught to dismiss, to analyze, to rationalize everything, to explain it all away with logic. But the soul doesn't speak from logic. It speaks from longing, from love, from truth. And when you finally get quiet enough to hear it, that's when everything changes. Every image your soul sends you carries weight, a silent, sacred weight. Every symbol that appears in your mind is more than a coincidence. It's a key, and every dream you've ever had is not just random nonsense. It's an intimate conversation between your truth and your consciousness. But we weren't taught to listen to them, were we? We were taught to silence them, to dismiss the dream, to label it as just your imagination. We were trained to value logic above all else, to explain everything with reason, to rationalize away the very language of the soul. And that's where we began to forget ourselves. Because here's the truth. The soul doesn't speak in bullet points or spreadsheets. It doesn't use facts and formulas. The soul speaks in metaphors, in emotions, in symbols, in whispers that don't always make sense at first, but always carry meaning. If you want to begin truly transforming your life, you must start by listening deeply to what you've ignored for far too long. Start by writing down your dreams when you wake up. Don't analyze them immediately. Don't try to be clever. Just write. Let the dream speak for itself. Let it breathe on the page. And then ask yourself, what part of me is expressing itself here? What emotion is trying to surface? What am I refusing to see? Because sometimes dreaming of water is the soul's way of expressing emotions you've buried. Sometimes dreaming of doors is a reflection of a choice you're too afraid to make. Dreaming of an ex isn't always about missing them. It could be about missing the version of yourself who existed in that relationship. And dreaming of death? It's rarely about fear of endings. More often, it's your soul whispering that you're ready to begin again. But please, don't run to Google for generic dream meanings. Your dreams weren't mass-produced. They were made by you, and only you can interpret them. Only you can feel their truth. That's why Jung said so passionately, there are no universal formulas, only personal symbols. And when you begin to learn your own soul's language, you stop needing outside answers. You become your own best guide. But here's the hard part, the one we often avoid. Listening to your soul requires courage, because sometimes what it wants to show you will unsettle you. It'll break apart the story you've carefully built. It'll shatter the illusion of who you thought you were. It'll pull the rug out from beneath the character you've been performing. And that's when freedom finally begins to take root. Not the fake freedom of doing whatever you want, but the sacred kind. The freedom that comes from no longer lying to yourself, from no longer needing to fit into a box that never fit you to begin with. That's the power of the woman who chooses herself, who listens to her intuition, even when it goes against the grain, who no longer begs for scraps of affection or feels the need to justify why she feels deeply, loves fiercely, cries suddenly, or speaks boldly. And yes, that choice comes at a cost. You will lose people. You will disappoint expectations. You will fracture the image others had of you. But you will also begin to return to the most important place of all, yourself. And that return? It's priceless. Jung called it individuation, the lifelong process of becoming what you were always meant to be. And let me remind you of everything in me. You are capable of far more than you've allowed yourself to believe. But to step into that potential, you have to make space. Space for the anger you never admitted, for the sadness you pushed down, for the desires you labeled as too much, for the voice you silenced so you wouldn't be judged. Here's something simple yet powerful that I invite you to try. Write a sentence you've never dared to say out loud, a truth you've carried for years, a boundary you didn't set, a dream you've kept in the dark. Write it, say it, let yourself feel the fear, because if it makes you tremble, it means you're getting closer to what's real. You are awakening to the untamed, intuitive, wild feminine energy that was buried beneath all the expectations. Not to become perfect, but to become you. But before you're reborn, you must die not physically, but symbolically. You must grieve the identity you spent years building, the one you thought was keeping you safe but was actually keeping you small. Jung knew that chaos comes before transformation, and that chaos? It's not failure, it's not punishment, it's labor, it's birth. There comes a moment in every awakening when everything begins to fall apart. The rules you lived by stop working. The people around you no longer recognize you. The desires you once chased no longer matter. And all that's left is you raw, cracked open, and without a mask. And I'll be honest with you, this is the part where many people give up, because it's not easy to mourn yourself, to look in the mirror and not recognize the woman staring back, to cry for reasons you can't name, to shake with uncertainty, to feel like everything solid has disappeared beneath your feet. But it's not the end. It's the threshold. You're not lost. You're in the middle. In the sacred, in-between space where the old you has fallen away, but the new you hasn't fully arrived. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's also holy. Because of that emptiness you're feeling, it's fertile ground. It's the womb of your transformation. It's the exact place where authenticity begins to bloom. Jung spoke of the night of the soul, that deep, silent, inward descent where everything false gets stripped away. It's where the psyche confronts its own shadow, not to be destroyed, but to be purified. You cannot avoid this night. You cannot skip this process, because if you try to bypass it, you'll only fill the void with things that don't belong. You'll repeat the patterns. You'll choose distraction over depth. And the cycle will continue. You must mourn the woman you were. You must say goodbye to the version of you who played small to be accepted, to the version who quieted her truth to avoid rejection, to the dreams built from a desperate need to be loved. And yes, it will hurt. You will cry. You will feel alone. You will even miss the safety of your illusions. But the truth is, the new can't arrive if the old still takes up space. So do this. Write a goodbye letter to the woman you were. Don't judge her. Thank her. She did the best she could. She carried you through heartbreak, through silence, through confusion. She helped you survive. But now, she's tired, and she can rest. Say thank you. Say goodbye. Because you're ready now for something more honest, more alive, more sacred. You might not know what that is yet. And that's okay, because your soul knows. And that's enough. Jung said the soul always seeks wholeness. It moves toward it with or without your permission. And even though you can't yet see the full map, the fact that you're here, reading this, feeling this, that means you've already begun. You're not losing yourself. You're returning. Even if it hurts, even if it makes no sense, just keep going, keep feeling, keep letting go. Because you, my love, are in the womb of change. And in that darkness, in that silence, in that stillness, something beautiful is taking root. Awakening doesn't come crashing in like lightning. It tiptoes in like a whisper. It doesn't shout through fireworks or dramatic signs. It arrives in the stillness, in the ordinary. On a quiet afternoon when the sun filters softly through your window, gently your chest rises as you finally stop running from yourself. There's no ceremony, no loud announcement, just a subtle shift. After the storm of chaos, there's an echo. And in that echo, something fragile and breathtaking begins to form. Not a shinier version of who you were, not a polished performance of who you think you should be, but something simpler, more grounded, more you. You no longer feel the need to prove, to explain, to make yourself palatable or acceptable for anyone else's comfort. For the first time in your life, you feel at home, not in a place, not in someone's arms, but in yourself. Jung called this sacred moment the encounter with the self, the return to the essential core of your being. It's not the ego. It's not the mask. It's not the character you've rehearsed so well. It's that wise, steady, eternal part of you that has always been there patiently waiting beneath the noise of the world, pulling you away from who you truly are. And when you find your way back to that center, when you sink into it with full presence, something aligns, not on the outside, inside. Suddenly, you don't need to chase. You don't need to perform. You don't need to be chosen because you have already chosen yourself. And that knowing, that deep, embodied knowing, it's everything. You start to remember all the things you are not. And in remembering that, you begin to taste true freedom. There is nothing more powerful, nothing more terrifying, and nothing more liberating than a woman who no longer wants to pretend. A woman who is done trying to fit into boxes she's long outgrown. A woman who doesn't apologize for crying when she's moved, or laughing too loudly when she's alive, or trembling when she speaks her truth. That woman, she isn't born from perfection. She is born from fire, from collapse, from silence, from surrender. She rises from the ashes of everything she thought she needed to be carrying only what is real, only what is hers. And then she sees her cracks, not as flaws, but as the sacred places where her light now pours through. Because where she was once broken, she now glows. Not with the spotlight of achievement, but with the soft, radiant truth of a woman who knows herself, hears herself, and honors herself. Jung once said that most people spend their entire lives trying to become what others expect of them, never realizing that this is the cruelest form of betrayal, abandoning your own soul just to be accepted. But you're no longer there. You've crossed the invisible line, the sacred threshold. And yes, fear still lingers. But even in that fear, something inside you has awakened. Try this. Place one hand on your heart and the other on your belly. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Now say to yourself, not from your mind, but from your body, I'm here. It's me. I'm with myself. It may sound simple, but if you allow yourself to feel it, it rewires something ancient inside you. Because you finally understand what you spent years chasing outside of you was always within. It was always waiting for you. This isn't about returning to who you were. This is about creating something new, building from your truth. The woman you are becoming is not a product of pressure or performance. She is born through integration. You are not just your light, you are also your shadow. And when you allow them both to sit at the same table without shame or war, you become whole. Jung said, enlightenment doesn't come by imagining figures of light. It comes by making the darkness conscious. And you've done that. You've stood in front of your pain. You've crossed the fires of transformation. You didn't turn away. You stayed. You listened. You felt. Now it's time to live differently, live with awareness. And what does that mean? It means you no longer act from habit. You no longer love because you're afraid of being alone. You no longer say yes just to avoid conflict. You stop choosing from fear. It means every decision, every step, every word comes from a place of clarity and truth. You begin to feel the difference between what fills you and what drains you, between what resonates and what simply clutters your soul. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment on number 3 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. And that changes everything. The awakened woman doesn't need a perfect life. She needs a real one with quiet mornings, one with spaces to rest, one with relationships that feel like safety, not survival, one with choices that feel aligned, not expected. She needs rituals that nourish her people who don't take, moments that slow her down, environments that reflect her truth, not bury it. It's not about having more, it's about feeling more, looking at the sky without guilt, speaking and listening to the sound of your voice, making love with presence, eating with gratitude, crying without apologizing, laughing without shrinking. That is living. Everything else is merely surviving. And beloved, you've survived long enough. It's time now. Time to fully inhabit yourself. But hear me, your ego will try to claw its way back. The old you, the one who sacrificed her needs for approval, will whisper again. She'll say, you're being dramatic. Tone it down. Don't feel so much. Don't show so much. But, better now. That voice is no longer your compass. It's your ghost. And you can let it go. Try this. Write a list of what you will no longer tolerate, not as a vow, but as a reclamation. Write another list of what you do want, what you know you deserve, what you now allow into your life, not because anyone handed it to you, but because you finally believe you are worthy of it. Let this be your line in the sand, because your story isn't shaped by what happened to you. It's shaped by what you decide to do with it. And you, courageous soul, have decided to awaken. Now, all that's left is to hold yourself, not as a burden, but as an act of radical, sacred love. The soul never asked for speed. It only ever asked for the truth. And now, finally, you're walking in truth. You're walking in you. And when a woman finally meets herself, everything shifts. Her voice changes. Her eyes deepen. Her walk softens. She speaks less, but every word carries weight. She no longer chases. She no longer begs. She no longer explains why she feels so much. And yes, the world will feel uneasy, because this world doesn't know what to do with awake women. It's used to available women. Who bends? Who please? Who performs? But you, my love, are no longer available for anything that pulls you away from yourself. And because of that, some will leave. People you've known for years may suddenly feel uncomfortable in your presence. They may say you've changed, and they'll be right. Because the old you didn't disappear in one grand gesture, she faded quietly. And now you are igniting. But please, be warned. When you begin to change, really deeply change, a strange kind of loneliness will come. Not the obvious kind, where you're physically alone. No! This is more subtle, more sacred. It's the kind where you're finally with yourself, and you realize you spent so many years surrounded by others, yet completely absent from your presence. And that kind of loneliness? It's holy ground. It's where your new roots begin to grow. It's where the noise clears where the fog lifts, where your truth finds space to breathe. So don't rush to fill that void. Don't panic and try to distract yourself. Don't throw yourself into the arms of someone or something just because the silence is loud. Stay. Stay with yourself. Breathe your presence. Listen to your new rhythm, the one that isn't shaped by expectation, but by resonance. Because the real doesn't arrive through desperation. It doesn't come when we're vibrating with anxiety. The real comes in coherence. It arrives when your frequency matches your truth. When a woman stands rooted in her truth, not swayed by approval, not anchored by fear, not driven by need, she begins to attract differently. Not from lack, not from fear of being alone, but from alignment, from coherence. And coherence? It's magnetic. Suddenly you'll notice that people who are also awake start to appear. Relationships that don't hurt. Conversations that don't drain. Connections that feel like still water, calm, deep, nourishing. People who don't demand, don't pull, don't take, they simply sit beside you and hold space. But to get there, you must first hold space for yourself. You must resist the temptation to return to the familiar, to the old comforts that came at the cost of your soul. You must refuse to shrink just to keep the peace. You must sano nono to betrayal disguised as belonging, because you're not here to fit in. You're not here to be digestible, agreeable, small. You're here to be a lighthouse, unapologetically bright, unmoved by the storm, visible, even when alone. And yes, sometimes lighthouses stand by themselves, but they never, ever stop shining. So here's a simple but powerful practice. Write a letter to your future self, to the woman who already lives the life you are just beginning to build. Tell her who you were, how far you've come, what you've had to release, and write this to her from the heart: I'm coming, wait for me. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment on number 4 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Because you will get there, not by accident, not by luck, but because you are choosing it every thought, every choice, every step. And that changes everything. Because when a woman heals, she doesn't heal just for herself. She heals for the entire line of women who came before her. She heals for her mother, her grandmother, her great-grandmother, for all the women who didn't get to choose, who didn't get to breathe, who didn't get to ask, who am I? Because no one ever told them they were allowed to. But you can, and that's why you're here. Jung spoke of the collective unconscious, a deep, invisible thread that binds us to every soul who has ever lived, a web made of symbols, stories, wounds, wisdom. And your story, your voice, your healing is a thread in that sacred tapestry. Your pain isn't just yours, but neither is your power, neither is your healing. When you choose to look at yourself raw, unfiltered, with trembling honesty, you're not just reclaiming your life. You're breaking a cycle. You're cutting the chains that told women they had to disappear to be loved. You're saying, enough. Now me. This time, I won't leave myself for later. That, my love, is revolution. And it doesn't matter if nobody notices. It doesn't matter if the world doesn't change overnight, because you have changed. And inside, you're writing a new legacy. When you decide you'll no longer stay silent, that you'll live in your body without guilt, that you'll say no without guilt, and yes without apology, you're clearing the path for every woman who still doubts she can. You don't need to be a leader. You don't need a stage or a platform. You just need to be whole, present, honest, because your coherence is medicine. Do you feel that? Every time you speak to yourself kindly, every time you rest without shame, every time you honor your boundary without explanation, you're healing generations. You're unwinding your mother's inner critic. You're softening your grandmother's silent fatigue. You're teaching your daughter or your inner little girl that her value is not measured by how much she endures. Jung said, "What is not made conscious appears as fate, but you are choosing to make it conscious. You are choosing to be the before and after in your lineage. Here's one more thing you can do. Close your eyes. Picture all the women who came before you, your ancestors, your foremothers, even the ones you never met. See their faces, feel their fears, sense their sacrifices, and then whisper from your soul, "Thank you for getting me here. Now it's my turn, and I promise I'll do it differently." You might cry, you might tremble, you might feel something shift in your chest. That's the chain breaking. That's the inheritance unbinding itself. That's your soul expanding. Because when one woman remembers herself, many others finally find rest. And now you can look back, and it doesn't sting in the same way. Not because the past doesn't matter, not because the pain didn't cut deep, but because you understand now, and understanding is the first step toward freedom. Jung said that suffering loses its power when you find its meaning, and that's exactly what you're doing. You're not just surviving it, you're transcending it. And no, it doesn't mean you have to justify everything that happened. It simply means you finally see it, and in that seeing, you find peace. Because true freedom doesn't come from fixing the past. It comes from no longer letting it define you. Look at your story not through the eyes of shame or regret, but through the eyes of a woman who has survived, who has evolved, who has quietly rebuilt herself over and over again. Every wrong turn, every love that shattered your heart, every moment you swallowed your voice just to keep the peace, every sacrifice that went unnoticed, every tear that stained your pillow in the silence of the night, every sleepless hour, every anxiety, every so-called mistake, none of it was wasted. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't a failure. It was a map. A map your soul was drawing, sometimes in chaos, sometimes in darkness, but always in search of one thing, you. You see it now, don't you? That woman who didn't know how to say no. That girl who gave too much and asked too little. The one who loved even when she was unseen, who kept holding on, even when everything in her whispered, "Let go." She brought you here. So no, you don't have to regret her. You get to thank her. Because now you understand, every wound wasn't just pain, it was potential. And each one held a seed. And you, with your tears, your grit, your sacred silence, you watered them. And now, they are blooming. You don't need anyone else to notice. You don't need applause, permission, or validation. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment on number 5 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. You know, and that knowing, that's what we call maturity. That's what we call coming home to yourself. Jung said that acceptance isn't giving up, it's wisdom. And he was right. To accept your story isn't to excuse it, it's to use it, to honor it, to say, this ground may have been hard, but look at how I grew. Do this, be brave. Write the sentence you've most feared saying about your past. Maybe it's I betrayed myself. Maybe it's I stayed where I wasn't seen. Or maybe it's as simple and raw as I was afraid. Now, right next to that sentence, write this. And yet, here I am. And that is enough. Because no matter how many times you fell, you got back up. No matter how many times you broke, you rebuilt. Not the same, but stronger, softer, more you. The woman you are today is the living, breathing result of every version you've ever been. And nothing you've lived is erased. It's honored. You don't need to understand it all right now. You just need to remember this one sacred truth. You can choose. And that changes everything. You are not at the mercy of fate. You are not stuck in the old patterns. You are not doomed to keep repeating the same stories. You're awake now, and an awakened woman. She is not just a survivor, she's a creator. Jung said, human beings don't find themselves, they create themselves. And that's what you're doing, not from perfection, but from presence, from truth, from choice. You finally understand that you don't have to control everything outside you, but you can control how you relate to it. You can choose to say no. You can choose to begin again. You can protect your energy like it's sacred because it is. You can close the doors you once begged to stay open simply because you've outgrown them. You don't owe anyone an explanation anymore. You don't have to keep proving yourself. You just have to be. That's real power, not the loud kind. Not the kind that overpowers others, but the kind that rises from your bones. The kind that whispers, "I know who I am." And yes, you'll still stumble. You'll still have moments of doubt. There will be days where you want to run back into the old you because it's familiar, even if it no longer fits. But every time you try to betray yourself now, it'll ache more. Because now, you've tasted your center. And once you've tasted the truth, there's no going back to pretending. Responsibility might feel heavy, but it's freeing. You no longer need rescuing. You're not pointing fingers. You're not hiding behind old excuses. You choose yourself, even when it's hard, even when your hands shake, even when it hurts. Because now, you know, no one else can walk this road for you. Here's your next soul practice. Look around you right now. The room you're in, the colors, the objects, the energy. And ask yourself, does this reflect the woman I am today or the one I used to be? Then write this down. What decision am I postponing? What truth am I avoiding? Where am I shrinking myself to keep others comfortable? This isn't pressure, it's permission. Because power isn't a goal, it's a practice. It's not found in one big moment. It's built into the daily details. It's in how you speak to yourself, how you ask for what you need, how you give without abandoning you. That's what builds your life, not the past, but the choices you make right now. Because your story doesn't end with your wounds. It begins right here with your wisdom, your willingness, and your presence. In this moment, this breath, you finally know what comes next depends on me. You see it now, don't you? You were never a victim of chance. You were never just a bystander. You were always the protagonist, the sole author of a perfect, divine causality. Every moment, even the ones you still can't explain, they mattered. Every heartbreak, every ache, every scar, it all had a purpose. Even the parts that broke you wide open. None of it was random. None of it was in vain. Jung once said that the soul always has a purpose, even when the mind hasn't caught up yet. And now you've caught up, not just in your head, but in your heart. You no longer define yourself by the pain. You define yourself by your awareness, by your courage to look, by your willingness to transform, by your capacity to feel without running. You are different now, not because you're harder, but because you are softer, more real, more you. And it shows in your voice that no longer trembles for approval, in your eyes that no longer search for permission, in your energy that feels like peace. Now you know, you don't need things to be perfect, you just need to be with yourself. And when you're truly with yourself, everything else finds its place. Now, take a moment. Just breathe. After everything you've heard, after everything your heart has felt, what have you truly learned about yourself? What moment stirred something deep in you? What truth did your soul whisper that you're finally ready to hear? Because this isn't just about watching a video, it's about awakening to your own life. So I want to ask you, what is one thing from this journey that you're going to take with you? What will you bring into your life starting today with more intention, more courage, more honesty? Maybe it's choosing yourself for the first time. Maybe it's writing that goodbye letter. Maybe it's simply listening to your inner voice without silencing it. Share it with us in the comments below. Write down one thing you've learned here and one way you'll begin practicing it in your life. Because when you name it, you claim it. And your words might just be the mirror another soul needs to finally see themselves too. If you found value in this video, please leave your comment below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You're not alone on this path. We're walking it together. Until next time, stay true, stay soft, stay awake.